The human heart is an engine of unparalleled endurance, beating approximately 100,000 times a day, roughly 35 million times a year, and nearly 3 billion times in an average lifetime. For the aging demographic, specifically those surpassing the age of 50, the preservation of this biological pump becomes the single most critical factor in determining not just longevity, but the quality of life during those later years. As the body ages, the vascular system undergoes a natural process of stiffening, a phenomenon known as arteriosclerosis, which is distinct from a more pathological atherosclerosis, though the two often compound one another. This gradual loss of arterial elasticity makes the cardiovascular system increasingly sensitive to the biochemical composition of the blood flowing through it, particularly the balance of lipoproteins. Among the myriad factors influencing heart health, low-density lipoprotein, or LDL cholesterol, stands out as a primary antagonist when present in elevated concentrations or when subjected to oxidative stress. While cholesterol is an essential building block for cell membranes and hormone production, the oxidized form of LDL poses a severe threat to the endothelial lining of the arteries. This oxidation triggers an inflammatory response, prompting the immune system to dispatch macrophages that engulf the cholesterol, eventually forming foam cells that calcify into plaque. This silent, cumulative process narrows the arterial lumen, forcing the heart to work harder and significantly raising the risk of ischemic events. Therefore, the dietary strategy for an older adult cannot simply be about caloric restriction. It must be a targeted biochemical intervention designed to modulate lipid profiles and enhance endothelial function. In the realm of nutritional science, few food groups have demonstrated as potent and consistent a cardioprotective effect as tree nuts. Often misunderstood in the past due to their high caloric density, nuts are now recognized by the scientific community as nutrient-dense powerhouses capable of altering metabolic parameters. The mechanism by which nuts influence cholesterol is multifaceted, involving a complex interplay of unsaturated fatty acids, plant sterols, dietary fiber, and a spectrum of bioactive polyphenol. Unlike pharmaceutical interventions like statins, which primarily inhibit cholesterol synthesis in the liver, the components found in nuts work systemically to inhibit cholesterol absorption in the intestine, increase the excretion of bile acids, and reduce systemic inflammation. This creates a dual-action defense, lowering the circulating levels of harmful lipids while simultaneously fortifying the blood vessel walls against damage. To understand the specific efficacy of these dietary interventions, one must look beyond the general macronutrients and examine the molecular interactions within the body. The first, and perhaps most scientifically scrutinized candidate in our arsenal of heart-protective foods is the walnut. Walnuts are unique in the botanical world, distinguishing themselves not merely by their distinctive, brain-like appearance, but by their exceptional fatty acid profile. While most nuts are rich in monounsaturated fats, walnuts are primarily composed of polyunsaturated fats, specifically a significantly high concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. ALA is an essential plant-based omega-3 fatty acid that the human body cannot synthesize on its own and must obtain from dietary sources. Upon ingestion, ALA undergoes a series of metabolic conversions and serves as a precursor to longer-chain fatty acids. But even in its native form, it exerts profound anti-inflammatory effects. Scientific literature has extensively documented the correlation between walnut consumption and improved lipid profiles. The mechanism appears to operate on genetic transcription factors that regulate lipid metabolism. When an individual consumes walnuts, the abundance of polyunsaturated fats helps to upregulate the LDL receptor activity on the surface of liver cells. These receptors are responsible for clearing LDL cholesterol from the bloodstream. By increasing the number and activity of these receptors, walnuts effectively facilitate the removal of the bad cholesterol from circulation before it can deposit itself within the arterial walls. Furthermore, the specific ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids in walnuts is biologically favorable, helping to dampen the chronic, low-grade inflammation that is often a hallmark of aging. This inflammatory state, often referred to as inflammaging, is a key driver in the destabilization of existing arterial plaque. By mitigating this inflammation, the bioactive compounds in walnuts help stabilize plaque, preventing rupture and the subsequent formation of clots that could lead to myocardial infarction or stroke. Beyond the lipid-lowering capabilities of its fatty acids, the walnut provides a secondary layer of protection through its rich content of phytosterols. These plant compounds are structurally similar to human cholesterol. When present in the digestive tract, phytosterols compete with dietary cholesterol for absorption sites in the small intestine. Because the body has a limited capacity for absorption, the presence of phytosterols effectively blocks the uptake of cholesterol, causing it to be excreted rather than entering the bloodstream. This competitive inhibition is a powerful natural tool for managing postprandial lipemia, the rise in blood fats that occurs after a meal. However, the benefits of walnuts extend into the realm of vascular reactivity. The endothelium, the single layer of cells lining the blood vessels, releases nitric oxide, a critical signaling molecule that commands the arteries to relax and dilate. This process, known as vasodilation, is essential for maintaining healthy blood pressure and ensuring adequate blood flow to vital organs. As we age, endothelial function tends to decline, leading to hypertension. Studies have shown that the consumption of walnuts can acutely improve endothelial-dependent vasodilation. This effect is likely attributed to the synergy between the omega-3 fatty acids and the amino acid L-arginine, which is abundant in walnuts. L-arginine acts as a precursor for nitric oxide synthesis. By providing the raw materials for this signaling molecule, walnuts help restore the elasticity and responsiveness of the arteries, effectively turning back the biological clock on vascular health. It is also important to address the antioxidative capacity of this specific nut. The thin, papery skin that surrounds the walnut kernel, often slightly bitter to the taste, is a concentrated source of phenolic acids, tannins, and flavonoids. In the context of LDL cholesterol, these antioxidants play a vital role in preventing the oxidation process mentioned earlier. Native LDL is relatively inert. It is the oxidized LDL that is atherogenic. The polyphenol found in walnuts circulate in the plasma and incorporate themselves into the LDL particles, providing a shield against oxidative stress caused by free radicals. This means that even if LDL levels remain present, the particles are less likely to become rancid and damaging to the arterial walls. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that regular walnut consumption significantly reduced total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol while maintaining or even improving HDL, the protective lipoprotein. This preservation of HDL is a critical distinction. Many dietary modifications that lower LDL also inadvertently lower HDL, but walnuts seem to spare this protective fraction. HDL acts as a scavenger, cruising through the bloodstream and picking up excess cholesterol from tissues and plaque, transporting it back to the liver for excretion, a process known as reverse cholesterol transport. By lowering the bad cholesterol while supporting the good, walnuts optimize the overall lipid ratio, which is often a more accurate predictor of cardiovascular risk than total cholesterol numbers alone. Transitioning from the biochemical to the practical application of this knowledge, it is worth noting that the dosage required to achieve these physiological changes is not unmanageable. The scientific consensus suggests that a daily intake of approximately 30 to 60 grams of walnuts can yield measurable improvements in lipid profiles within a matter of weeks. Furthermore, recent research has begun to uncover the impact of walnuts on the gut microbiome. The fiber and polyphenol in walnuts act as prebiotics, feeding beneficial bacterial strains such as Butyroviricus and Bifidobacteria. These bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which enter circulation and have been shown to inhibit cholesterol synthesis in the liver. Having established the foundational importance of arterial health and the specific, multi-targeted role of the walnut, we must broaden our scope to consider another giant in the nutritional world, the almond. As we shift our focus from the omega-3 rich profile of the walnut we encounter the almond, a nut that presents a completely different, yet complementary, biochemical architecture. If the walnut is the architect of lipid receptor activity, the almond serves as the guardian against oxidative. The primary weapon in the almond's arsenal is its extraordinary concentration of alpha-tocopherol, the most biologically active form of vitamin E. In the physiological landscape of an older adult, vitamin E is not merely a nutrient. It is a critical membrane stabilizer. The cell membranes of the human body, including those lining the arterial walls, are composed of a lipid bilayer that is highly susceptible to oxidative damage from free radicals. When these membranes are compromised, inflammation ensues, inviting the deposition of cholesterol. Almonds provide a robust supply of this fat-soluble antioxidant, which integrates itself directly into the cell membranes and into the LDL particles themselves. This is a crucial distinction. By saturating the LDL particle with vitamin E, the almond effectively armors the cholesterol, preventing it from oxidizing. The efficacy of almonds, however, is not confined to the meat of the nut alone. It is heavily dependent on the presence of the skin. Scientific analysis reveals that the papery brown skin of the almond is rich in polyphenol, particularly catechins and epicatechins, similar to those found in green tea and dark chocolate. When these flavonoids are consumed in conjunction with the tocopherols of the nut meat, their antioxidant capacity is not merely additive but exponential. They recycle each other, significantly extending the duration of their protective effects within the bloodstream. Beyond the direct stabilization of LDL, almonds exert a profound influence on the functionality of high-density lipoprotein, HDL. Recent research suggests that the monounsaturated fats and bioactive compounds in almonds can rejuvenate these HDL particles, enhancing their ability to perform reverse cholesterol transport. This means that an almond-enriched diet does not just lower the threatening LDL. It actively energizes the cleanup crew, making the removal of existing arterial deposits more efficient. Leaving the sun-drenched, dry climates that favor the almond, we turn our attention to a nut that carries the vibrancy of color as its signature, the pistachio. Often referred to as the smiling nut, the pistachio offers a nutritional profile that is distinctively beneficial for the aging cardiovascular system. The most striking visual feature of the pistachio, its green and purple hue, is the first clue to its unique power. These colors are the result of high concentrations of lutein, zeaxanthin, and anthocyanins. In the context of heart health, these pigments serve as potent hydrophilic and lipophilic antioxidants. Pistachios hold a specific title in the world of nuts. They are among the richest sources of phytosterols, particularly beta-sitosterol. As touched upon with walnuts, phytosterols are the plant kingdom's structural equivalent to cholesterol. Because pistachios contain such a high density of these compounds, their ability to block cholesterol absorption in the gut is unparalleled. When a meal containing cholesterol is consumed alongside pistachios, the phytosterols flood the micellar solubilization phase in the intestine. They effectively crowd out the dietary cholesterol, preventing it from being packaged into chylomicrons and entering the lymphatic system. However, the cardiovascular protection offered by pistachios extends beyond lipid modulation to the very mechanics of blood flow. Hypertension, or high blood pressure, is the silent partner of high cholesterol. Together, they accelerate arterial damage. Pistachios are remarkably high in potassium, a mineral that is often deficient in the modern diet yet is essential for counteracting the hypertensive effects of sodium. A single serving of pistachios contains more potassium than half a large banana. This high potassium to sodium ratio facilitates the relaxation of vascular smooth muscle, reducing peripheral resistance and allowing blood to flow more freely. Additionally, we must consider the role of glycemic control in heart health. The surge in blood glucose following a high-carbohydrate meal induces immediate oxidative stress on the endothelial lining. Pistachios have a low glycemic index and are high in fiber and protein. When consumed with carbohydrate-rich foods, they significantly blunt the blood sugar spike. This glucose-dampening effect is vital for the aging population, as insulin sensitivity naturally wanes with age. By flattening the glucose curve, pistachios prevent the glycation of LDL particles. Glycated LDL is small, dense, and particularly difficult for the liver to clear. As we synthesize the data on almonds and pistachios, a clear pattern emerges, yet the story of the nut kingdom's contribution to heart health is not yet complete. We transition now to the temperate, mist-covered regions that favor the growth of the hazelnut. Often overshadowed by the popularity of almonds, hazelnuts possess a nutritional distinction that is particularly vital for the elderly population. They are exceptionally rich in folate and copper. While the conversation around heart health is frequently dominated by cholesterol, there exists another biological marker that is equally predictive of cardiovascular risk: homocysteine. Homocysteine is an amino acid produced during protein metabolism, which, when elevated, is toxic to the endothelial lining. It scours the arterial walls much like sandblasting, creating the initial lesions where LDL cholesterol subsequently gets trapped. The hazelnut acts as one of the most potent natural sources of dietary folate, a B vitamin that acts as the essential cofactor in the enzymatic breakdown of homocysteine. Furthermore, the hazelnut's contribution extends to the structural integrity of the heart itself through its copper content. Copper is a trace mineral that is indispensable for the synthesis of collagen and elastin, the proteins that provide structure and elasticity to the aorta and major arteries. Our journey culminates with the queen of nuts, the macadamia. Native to the indigenous rainforests of Australia and now cultivated in Hawaii, the macadamia nut is often viewed with trepidation due to its high caloric density. However, this very richness is the source of its unique medicinal power. Macadamias contain the highest percentage of monounsaturated fats of any nut, but they possess a secret weapon: palmitoleic acid, omega-7. While omega-3 and omega-6 are well known, omega-7 is a rarity in the human diet. Research indicates that palmitoleic acid functions almost like a lipokine, a signaling molecule composed of fat. It has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity by protecting the insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas. For the aging heart, which is often besieged by the metabolic chaos of insulin resistance, the macadamia offers a targeted intervention. Clinical trials have demonstrated that diets enriched with macadamia nuts result in a significant reduction in serum triglyceride levels. High triglycerides are often the forgotten lipid, yet in older women particularly, they are a potent risk factor for stroke and heart disease. Having dissected the specific biological virtues of walnuts, almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts, and macadamias, we must now synthesize this information into a coherent dietary strategy. The goal is not to isolate a single superfood, but to create a portfolio diet. Imagine the biological orchestration. The walnuts upregulate the liver's LDL receptors. The pistachios block cholesterol absorption in the gut. The almonds shield the LDL from oxidation with vitamin E. The hazelnuts lower arterial damaging homocysteine, and the macadamias improve insulin sensitivity and lower triglycerides. When consumed together, these nuts attack the pathology of heart disease from 5 distinct angles. However, for the elderly audience, the practical application of this knowledge is as important as the biochemistry. We must address the issues of dentition and digestion. As we age, gastric acid production often declines, making the digestion of dense proteins and fats more challenging. The first recommendation for seniors is the practice of activation or soaking. Soaking nuts in water with a pinch of salt for 6 to 12 hours initiates the germination process. This breaks down phytic acid, an anti-nutrient that binds to minerals like calcium and iron, preventing their absorption. Furthermore, soaking softens the texture of the nut, making it easier to chew and more accessible to digestive enzymes. Secondly, the use of nut butters is an excellent strategy for those with compromised dentition. Creating homemade blends preserves the raw lipid profile while pre-digesting the mechanical structure. Thirdly, we must address the issue of storage and rancidity. The very polyunsaturated fats that make walnuts and pine nuts so healthy are also highly unstable. Therefore, for the heart-conscious senior, the rule is simple. Treat nuts like fresh produce. They should be purchased in small quantities, preferably in shell, and once shelled, they must be stored in the refrigerator or freezer. It is also vital to consider the timing of consumption. To maximize the cholesterol-blocking effects of the phytosterols, nuts should be consumed with meals rather than as an isolated snack. By having them present in the gut alongside other foods, they can effectively compete for absorption sites. In conclusion, the protection of the aging heart is fundamentally a nutritional endeavor. The 5 nuts we have analyzed are not merely snacks. They're complex biological packages containing the precise codes needed to unlock clearer arteries, lower inflammation, and stronger vessel walls. By understanding the unique mechanism of each, we empower the older adult to take an active role in their health. The heart is the engine of life. Give it the premium fuel it deserves, and it will serve you faithfully.